So recently I have actually been getting myself off of video games and actually trying to get into board games. It's something that you'll definitely be surprised because a lot of times it's like, what's great about playing on cardboard? Well, here's one of the answers. 13 Dead End Drive. Of course everyone needs to know what the board looks like. And as soon as you actually see the board for the first time, you might be thinking, okay, this seems like a very long game to really play. You just have to actually know where to start and when to finish, basically. Yeah, until you actually pull out every single other thing. It's like, wait, more cardboard stuff? And there's extra plastic pieces? Come on! But then again, it's just how it is for all the walls and the other stuff. This is basically what you actually have to do. You have to set this whole thing up. Now the first time whenever you do it, it's most likely going to take at least 20 to 30 minutes because you're looking at the instruction manual. But then once you actually know how to set up everything, it's actually a lot more easier than it looks. For me, I would have to say it takes less than 20 minutes for me to really set the whole thing up. And I gotta say, it's getting easier every single time. And as for the pawns, you do have to actually put its standing piece underneath for each one. Now, I would say this. If you're actually going to be rebuilding all this, resetting it up, I would say this. Do not remove the stands on the pawns, and do not actually remove the rubber band that actually keeps the chandelier in place. So there's pretty much a lot that you want to keep on. And as for the board itself, it looks amazing the way how everything is set up. From the bookcase to the chandelier, even for the statue. You know, one of the things that I would actually notice, because I have seen an old video of this board game, this is actually a more updated version for setting up the game. Everything's still the same, but I remember back then it utilized more clips and rubber bands to actually set this game up. Well, at least now it's not actually a stressful thing. So after shuffling the deck, it's actually time to pass out the cards. This is a 2 to 4 player game, so 3 players can have 4 cards each, 4 players can have 3 cards each. But however, whenever you're doing a 2-player game, they have 4 cards each and 2 secret cards that are face down the whole entire game. Even after the characters are dead, you actually have the cards in hand, and it's actually time to tell you the story. So this mansion actually belonged to Aunt Agatha, who had sadly passed away. So what is it about Aunt Agatha? Well, it says here, the late, very late Aunt Agatha, former Miss Tomato Pie of Louisiana, and heirs to a kitty litter fortune, Aunt Agatha has finally raised all 4 human paws to the sky, scorned for her humble tomato pie start and scented fortune. She was dearly loved for her millions. At her funeral, her nearest and dearest friends and enemies gathered together craving a scoop of that litter-filled money pie. But her will says only one can inherit it. Well, that is actually something crazy because they all seem nice and all, but it's crazy enough that even her cat can. A cat to actually win the will? I mean, if the cat actually wins, how the hell is the cat ever going to spend anything? That's like one of the biggest mysteries of this game. Now, after when you roll the die, you must actually move 2 separate pawns depending on your roll. Now, it could be yours or someone else's. And when you roll doubles, you can move 1 pawn, how many spaces that doubles is, or you can move the portrait card to the back. Now remember, the one on the portrait card is actually the one holding the will. And after when that character dies, they are actually dead from the entire game. And they will go to the dead pile. And there's actually so many ways that you can actually think about it. So you actually can move them to many other different death spots. Now these are basically death cards. And even sometimes, 2 deaths could actually show on there. And that would actually be surprising. There's even a wild card depending on what death you could actually try getting. Now, I don't think there's really a limit to any bluffing whatsoever. I mean, if you do bluff, you are having that chance to really use that card whenever you can. It's crazy enough that you could actually move any player, including your own. But there's always the 3 ways to actually win the game. And here they are. Now, while your character is actually the one in the portrait, you could actually move to the game over space and then you win. But you could kill people by using the statue, the stairs, the bookcase, the chandelier, or even my favorite, the fireplace. Have all but one, and that's the winner. And after, when you kill someone, that person makes it to the death pile, and if that is actually the final character on the portrait, then that person wins. And I gotta say, with the 3 ways to win, it's actually most common. Oh, by the way, stickers, they're a bitch. And after when you're actually done with all that, make sure you put the pieces back, and it's time to use that trap again. Now, another way is actually the detective. So when you draw a detective card, you can actually move it. There are 10 detective cards in the pile, and once it reaches to the game over space, whoever's on the portrait wins. You know, one of the strangest things I actually would think about some of the pieces for the pawns are that it's always the same picture on both sides. However, for the detective, you got the front, but you also got his back. I'm like thinking, couldn't they actually do it for any of the other pawns? It's strange, really. So, not only will you actually be moving, trying to reach the door when you're in the portrait, or killing everyone, or making the detective go, but there are some secrets and rules that you have to follow. There are a couple of secret passageways that actually move around and stuff. Now, these secret passageways are actually a good way to actually get to the door or make someone get to the trap space. For example, if you actually roll a couple numbers to actually get to one of them, you can move them and then continue that number to another passageway. If you land on one of the trap spaces, you must actually draw a card. Now, if you actually pick up a detective card, you must actually put that down, move the detective, and actually draw again. Now, if you actually draw a card that isn't the card, you must actually keep the card, and your turn is basically over. If you actually draw a card, let's say, for example, this is actually the card that is that trap space, but you could actually bluff and keep the card. If you actually draw the card and you want to use it, then it's actually okay to do it and show the card, and it's time to actually spring the action. For the bookcase, you must actually put it on top of the ladder and spring the trap. Now let's say it's actually the next person's turn after this person gets to the death space. There is an illegal 4 that you can't actually do. This is the example. And I gotta say, this will actually be a good addition to your board game collection. If you think that Clue was actually one of the greatest mystery murder games ever, this was mainly about murder.